So far in your programming in C, you've learned how to create variables that hold a single value. But you can also create a special kind of variable called an array that can hold multiple values. For example, this might be useful if you were a teacher and you needed to grade a list or an array of test scores. So how do you create one of these arrays that can hold multiple values? The first thing you have to give it is the type of data that will be stored in the array. And each of these values that's stored in an array is called an element. So just like with a normal variable, you give it the data type. And since we're doing test scores, we're going to say double. Alright, and next, just as with a normal variable, we need to give it the name, and we're going to call this one scores. And because it needs to know how much space and memory to reserve, we need to tell it how many of these double variable elements we're going to have. And in this case, we'll just have 3 test scores. So in brackets, put the number 3, and then in a semicolon, and that's it. We've just created an array of double variables, and it contains 3 of them. Alright, so we have 3 of them and 3 double variables in the array, but how do we access those? Well, we access them with what we call indexes, and to access them we have to type the name of the array followed by the index inside of brackets that we want to access. Now, you might think that the first index for this array would be 1, but instead it's 0. In almost all programming languages, array indexes start at 0, and this is just because of how computers work internally. It's kind of strange, but the first element in that array is 0, the second one will be 1, and the last one will be 2. There is no 3 in this array because we start at 0 and not at 1. So this would access the first element. But before we can access it, we should probably give it a value assigned to it. And this is just a normal variable we have here. And so we can assign to it using the equal sign. And let's say it is 87.6. And now we're going to assign the next one a value of 67.8. And we're going to give the third one a value of 100. Alrighty, we have now assigned values to all 3 elements in the array, and now we're going to use a print statement to get the average test score within this array. And we're going to print out a floating point number, and we're going to do scores 0 plus scores 1 plus scores 2, and we're going to divide this by 3. Now, the only thing we have to change now is, as we know, because the division operator has a higher precedence than the addition operator, this would get done first, and then it would add that to this and to this. And we need it to add all 3 before it does the division. So we need to put these within parentheses. Alright, so now we're good. Now we can run this program and get the average for these test scores. I apologize, that's a mess, I know. So the average of these test scores is 85.133333. Alright, so this is the basics of an array. An array has the data type for the elements that the array contains. It has a name, just like any other variable, and it has the number of elements that the array will contain. To access an element, you simply put the name of the array and the index of the element that you want, and indexes do not start at 1, they start at 0. And to assign values to the elements in the array, you also use the index, and this is basically a variable, so you can use it as a value or you can assign to it, and we assign 3 times and then we print it out the average. And you can use arrays with different data types if you want, for integers or characters. And in the next lesson, you're going to be learning about strings. You may have thought that strings were something special and different, but they're really not. and in the next tutorial you're going to find out exactly how strings work in C. I hope you've learned something in this tutorial, and I'll see you again next time.